My father locked the dining room doors from the inside. Then he slid a steak knife across the white tablecloth. The sharp tip pointed right at my chest. "Transfer the money, Evadne," he whispered. "Or we will see how much you really value your life." I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just watched my sister Tamsin sitting at my laptop. Her eyes looked wild with greed. She was trying to take $3.8 million from my bank account. My mother was holding the edge of the table and shaking. She was waiting to be rich again. They thought they were stealing from me. They didn't know the enter key Tamsin was about to press wasn't connected to a real bank. It was a secret panic button. It was connected straight to the state police. I took a slow sip of wine. 3, 2, 1. Drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is in our community. 48 hours earlier. 48 hours before my father pointed a steak knife at me. I was safe at home. The only danger I faced was a cold cup of coffee. I was standing in my apartment in downtown Boston. My home was everything my childhood home wasn't: quiet, paid for, and safe. The morning sun hit the quartz countertops I bought with my own money. I was reading a case file about a company in the Caymans when my phone buzzed on the marble. The screen lit up with one word: Mother. I stared at it. We hadn't spoken in 6 months. Not since I said no to co-signing a loan for my sister's failed boutique. My thumb hovered over the decline button. Logic told me to let it go to voicemail. Experience told me that if Mom called at 8 o'clock in the morning, she wanted something. And she wouldn't stop until she got it. I answered. "What is it, Zephra?" "Evadne, honey," she said. Her voice sounded breathless and sweet. "Sweetness usually costs me a lot of money. Is that how you answer your mother? We've been so worried about you." "I'm fine. What do you want?" I asked. "We want to see you," she said, her voice getting quiet. "Your father and we've been thinking about Grandma Euphemia. It's been a year since she passed, and we never had a proper family dinner to honor her. We want you to come home this Friday. Just us. Family." I leaned against the counter, watching her tone like I watched spreadsheets. The tone was too high. She was lying. My parents didn't do memorial dinners. They did fake sadness when people were watching. I said, "I have plans." "Please, Evadne," she said, sounding desperate. "Tamsin will be there. She's going through a hard time. She needs her big sister. We all need to heal. I'm making your favorite roast." For a second, the old hope returned. The hope that maybe they really missed me. Maybe they still saw me as the quiet teenager who would do anything for love. But they didn't know who I was now. I was 32 years old. I was not the quiet daughter anymore. I was a forensic accountant. I hunted down hidden money for federal cases. I knew how to spot scams. I could see when someone was lying. Then my mother said something casually. "Bring that little bank key fob of yours. The blue one. Dad found some old savings bonds of Grandma's in the attic. We might need your access to cash them out for the estate." The trap snapped shut. There were no bonds. I had checked Grandma Euphemia's estate carefully. Everything was already in the trust one controlled. They didn't want to honor my grandma. They wanted the digital key to the $3.8 million in the trust. They were inviting me over to rob me. "Evadne, are you there?" my mom asked. I looked at my reflection in the window. My eyes were cold. If I said no, they would keep coming. They would show up at my job. They would harass my friends. Maybe they would try to forge my signature again. The only way to stop a parasite is to let it think it found a vein, and then poison the blood. "I'm here," I said. My voice was steady. "I'll be there, Mom. Friday night." "Good," she breathed. "Bring the fob. Don't be late." She hung up. I put the phone down and opened my laptop. I didn't feel fear. I felt the clear focus of a hunter. They wanted access to the account. Fine. I would give it to them. I opened a new coding window. It was time to build a mirror. The next morning, I sat across from Blaze in his glass-walled office. Blaze wasn't just a lawyer. He was a shark in a three-piece suit. He specialized in protecting money. He looked at the plan I had laid out on his desk. His eyebrows lifted a little. "You know this is aggressive," he said, tapping the paper. "We could just file a restraining order. We could send a cease and desist. You don't have to walk into the lion's den. A restraining order is a piece of paper," I said. My voice was flat. My parents don't respect paper. They respect consequences. If I block them, they'll find another way to bother me. I need to break the bridge while they're standing on it. Blaze stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled slowly. "If they willingly enter their information into a system designed to verify identity and then attempt an unauthorized transfer, well, that's entirely on them. I'll have the state police on standby. I left his office and went straight to work. I didn't need a team. I needed coffee and silence. I opened my laptop and started coding. I wasn't building a bank website. I was building a mirror. I copied the bank's interface exactly. The soothing blue logo. The calming font. The two-factor authentication prompt. To the naked eye, it looked like the portal to my grandmother's money. But in reality, it was a data vacuum. Every keystroke, every mouse click, every camera scan would be captured. It would be packaged and instantly emailed to the cybercrimes division. As I typed the code for the fake transfer button, my hand cramped. I shook it out. For a second, the blue light of the monitor blurred into flashing blue police lights in the rain. I was 17 again. The smell of wet asphalt and burnt rubber filled my nose. My parents' sedan was wrapped around a telephone pole a mile from our house. Tamsin was in the driver's seat, crying, smelling of vodka and peach schnapps. I was in the passenger seat. My forehead was bleeding from hitting the dashboard. I hadn't even been in the car when she crashed. I had walked down the road because she called me screaming for help. My father arrived before the cops. He didn't check if we were hurt. He checked who was in the driver's seat. He looked at Tamsin, hysterical and drunk. Then he looked at me, sober and bleeding. "Move," he ordered. "What?" I asked, confused. "Switch seats." Now they dragged me into the driver's seat. My mother grabbed my face. Her hands were cold. She didn't yell. She didn't panic. That was the scariest part. She spoke to me in a soft voice, like she was explaining why I needed to eat my vegetables. "Evadne, honey," she whispered, wiping blood from my eye. "Tamsin has her pageant next month. She has a scholarship. A DUI will ruin her life. You're strong. You're smart. You can handle a juvenile record. It gets sealed when you're 18 anyway. Do this for your sister. It's just a little sacrifice." They made it sound normal. They made destroying my future sound like a simple act of love. If I said no, I was the selfish one. I was ruining the family. So I sat there. I took the breathalyzer. I took the blame. I lost my scholarship to a top university because of the record. I spent my first year of adulthood scrubbing toilets to pay for community college while Tamsin went to parties on my parents' money. I blinked and the memory vanished. I was back in my apartment, the code blinking on the screen. They had used my love against me then. They had weaponized my loyalty. But they forgot loyalty has an expiration date. I wasn't the 17-year-old girl bleeding in the rain anymore. I was the woman who audits cartels. I finalized the script and hit save. The trap was armed. The gravel of the driveway crunched under my tires, sounding suspiciously like bones breaking. I pulled up to the estate. I turned off the engine but left the lights on for a moment to light up the big house. I stepped out and felt the cold night air. It smelled like wet leaves and distant rain. The big house looked bright and warm inside. It looked like a happy family home. But I knew it wasn't. I walked up the steps slowly. My heart was calm. My hands didn't shake. I felt like a detective going into a mystery. I could hear my mother's voice through the door. She sounded excited and happy. That's what she wanted me to feel. My father opened the door. His face was angry, but he smiled like it was a normal night. "Evadne," he said. "You're finally here." I stepped inside. The dining room smelled like roast and spices. The table was set with clean plates and silverware. It looked perfect. Tamsin was sitting at the table with a smile. She looked like she had been waiting for this moment. "Hi, Rosie," she said. "We missed you." My mother walked up to me and hugged me. She hugged me too tight. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "We're so proud of you." I nodded and sat down. They had no idea I was not the same girl they used to control. They didn't know I was ready. My parents' house in Connecticut was built to impress people they didn't like. It was a very big house, like a castle, with tall white columns in the front and bushes that were cut into perfect shapes. The grass was always green, and the driveway was long and clean. From the outside, it looked like a house for a rich family who had lots of money and power. But I knew the truth. The house was not strong. It was built to look good, but inside it was falling apart. I could see cracks near the bottom of the house, where the stucco was breaking. The paint around the windows was peeling, like the house was old and tired. The house looked beautiful, but it was actually rotting from the inside. It was like my parents. They cared only about how things looked. They wanted everyone to think they were perfect, even if they were not. I packed my bag carefully. I checked my laptop one last time to make sure it was inside. Then I walked out into the humid night air. The air was thick and sticky, like the weather was sweating. I felt a little nervous, but I tried not to show it. When I reached the front door, Zephyra opened it before I could knock. Zephyra was wearing a silk gown that looked old, like it had been worn many times before. It smelled strongly of lilies. The smell was so heavy that it almost hurt my nose. It was a funeral smell, like someone was trying to hide something else, something bad. Maybe the smell was hiding the damp plaster smell in the house. Maybe it was hiding fear. "You made it," Zephyra said with a tight smile. It was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Come in, darling. We've been waiting." She didn't hug me. She didn't even touch me. She just stepped aside and let me in. The foyer was big and shiny. It had a chandelier that sparkled like diamonds. But it felt cold and fake, like a place where people pretend to be happy. My sister Tamsin was pacing back and forth. She looked like she was about to cry. Her dress was a very expensive Chanel dress, but her hair was messy and her eyes were wide and nervous. She looked like she thought the wallpaper might jump out and attack her. When she saw me, she stopped and stared at my suit. "You wore that," she said sharply. "It's a family dinner, Evadne, not a tax audit. You look like a funeral director." "Hello to you too, Tamsin," I said calmly. "You look tired." "I'm not tired," she snapped. "I'm stressed." "Not that you would understand stress. Your biggest problem is probably finding a parking spot at your boring office." I didn't argue with her. I just walked into the dining room. The dining room looked like a room from a rich person's movie. The table was long and covered with a white tablecloth. There were fancy plates and gold-rimmed cups. The kind of dishes that people only use for weddings. But the food on the table was not fancy at all. It was a dry store-bought roast chicken and limp asparagus. It looked like the food was made by someone who didn't care. A poor meal on a rich table. My dad, Darian, sat at the head of the table. He didn't stand up when I walked in. He didn't even smile. He looked smaller than I remembered. His skin was gray and pale. His hands shook when he poured himself a glass of wine. "Sit down," he ordered. I sat down slowly. I placed my bag next to my chair. I made sure the laptop was close, where I could grab it easily if I needed to. We ate in silence. The only sound was the forks scraping the plates. The air in the room felt heavy, like a thick blanket. It was so tense that I could almost feel it pressing on my chest. After a few minutes, Darian dropped his fork. It made a loud clattering sound. "Enough," he said. We all looked at him. "We didn't bring you here to talk about Grandma," he said. "I figured," I said. "The roast is dry, Dad. What do you want?" Tamsin spoke first, without thinking. "We need the money," she blurted out, slamming her hand on the table. The wine glasses shook. "Now tonight," she added, her voice shaking. Darian raised his hand to silence her. His eyes looked cold and hard. "Your sister is in trouble, Evadne," he said. "Real trouble." "She borrowed money," Tamsin whispered. "From who?" I asked. "Banks don't lend to people with a credit score of 400. Darian lowered his voice, like he was telling a secret. "Not a bank," he said. "Hard money lenders. Private investors who don't file paperwork. They don't care about credit scores. They care about collateral." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we put the house up as a promise to pay the loan," he said. "But the interest ballooned, and the loan was due this morning." "How much?" I asked. 3.8 million, Tamsin whispered, tears finally falling from her eyes. They were big tears, like she was truly scared. "They said if I don't pay by midnight, they're not just taking the house," she cried. "They're going to hurt me. They sent pictures. They know where I sleep." I looked at my watch. It was 8:15. "You have until midnight to wire $3.8 million, I said slowly. "You're the trustee," Darian said, his voice turning into a growl. "You have access to your grandmother's accounts. We know there's over $4 million there. You are going to open that laptop, log in, and transfer the money. That money is for charity," I said calmly. "It's in the bylaws." "Forget the bylaws," Darian shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "This is your sister's life. You are going to fix this now." He stood up slowly. The chair scraped the floor loudly like a warning. He walked toward the double doors that led to the foyer. He locked them. Click. The sound of the deadbolt was loud and final. He turned around and took the brass key out of the lock. Then he walked back to the table. He picked up a knife and set it down in front of me. It wasn't a dramatic move. He didn't wave it or shout. He just placed it there like he was saying, "You have no choice." "Nobody leaves," he whispered, "until the transfer is complete." My heart stopped for a moment. This was no longer a family argument. This was a hostage situation. I looked at Zephyra. She wasn't scared. She was nodding like she agreed with everything. I looked at Tamsin. She was smiling in a cruel way, the same way she used to smile when she got me in trouble as a child. They were united. They were willing to break the law. They were willing to threaten me. They wanted to keep their fake life. I realized they didn't care about me at all. They cared only about money and pride. I knew what I had to do. I had to act scared. If I looked too calm, they would know something was wrong. So I let my lip tremble. I forced my breath to shake. I squeezed my eyes until tears appeared. "Dad, please," I sobbed. "I could lose my license. I could go to jail." "You'll be fine," Zephyrus sneered. "You hid the money. You can hide this." Tamsin pointed at me and laughed. "Just open the laptop," she said. Darian's hand hovered near the knife. "Do it," he said. I slumped in my chair, acting weak. I reached into my bag and pulled out the laptop. They leaned in like vultures. I clicked the bookmark labeled Trust Access. It was a fake website I built the night before. I typed the password slowly so they could memorize every character. The fake dashboard loaded. It showed a balance of $3.8 million. Their eyes widened. Greed replaced fear. "Transfer it," Darian ordered. "All of it." My hand shook. "I can't," I whispered. Tamsin shoved me aside and typed the bank number for the loan sharks herself. She looked crazy with excitement. "You tried to keep it," she spat. "But I won." "You shouldn't," I whispered. She hit enter. The screen flashed red. A siren wailed. Red text appeared. Critical security alert. Unauthorized access. Biometric captured. GPS locked. Law enforcement dispatched. They panicked. They clicked and swore. They demanded answers. "There is no money," I said, standing up now. My voice was calm. "Grandma donated the trust months ago. This was a trap." Their faces changed. They looked like they had been punched. The webcam blinked. The police were watching. "Say hello to cybercrimes," I said. They had just threatened me and tried to commit wire fraud. Tamsin collapsed on the floor and cried. Darian tried to shut the laptop. Zephyrus screamed and cursed. "You killed yourself," she shouted. "I told you," I said to Tamsin. "I warned you not to press the button." Within minutes, sirens lit up the house. Police knocked down the door and rushed in. They cuffed them one by one. Darian stared at me like I had betrayed him. Tamsin sobbed and cried. Zephyra fought until she was dragged away. "You are not family," she screamed. "You're dead to us." I pulled out a paper from my bag. It was a deed, a paper that showed the house was mine. I had signed it years earlier, before they tried to control me. I told her quietly, "This is my house. You were trespassing." They froze. That was the real moment they lost. As the police dragged them into the rain, I watched them go. It was raining softly, like the world was washing away the bad things. I felt relief. I also felt sadness. 6 months later, the house was mine. It was light, clean, and quiet. There were no loud fights. No fake smiles. No lies. A letter arrived from Darian. I burned it without opening it. Then I made tea in one of Grandma's cups. Sometimes the silence felt empty. Then I remembered the knife, the red screen, and their eyes. They chose greed over me. Family is supposed to be everything. That is why I had to escape mine.